How's it going? And today we're gonna talk about something interesting. For the past couple of videos, I've been talking about the rise and the revival or the renaissance, or whatever you want to call it, of non-naturalist and non-realist views within science and academia, with basically the resurgence of parapsychology, academia, and phenomenology and psychoanalysis, but not the Freudian type, just more in a general sense, right? Where usually we focus on the idealism, right? Which the leading figure is Bernardo Castro, who publishes academic peer-reviewed book, The Idea in the World, the multidisciplinary arguments that link the nature of reality, which was his PhD thesis, which is the first academic peer-reviewed book making a case for idealism for the first time in 200 years, for the first time since Hegel. And he defends particularly a non-dualist monist idealism. Although there are many types of the idealism, like Paul Marshall, who is a proponent of pluralist idealism, the Lipsian ontological type, for example. And we also had the revival of dualism, but not property dualism, substance dualism. It started by, the lead parapsychological evidence at the moment, where it started in 2006, where irreducible mind towards the psychology of the 21st century, edited by Edward Kelly and three other people, who basically revived substance dualism as like a legitimate position back in 2006. And to this day, there have been multiple academic peer-reviewed books and scholarship on the topic, like Beyond Physicalism, Consciousness Not Bound, Mind on the Frontier, the Weekly Handbook of Idealism and Materialism, the Black White Companion to Substance Dualism, the Ruling Handbook of Panpsychism, which has also got a resurgence, but although it's a minority position among the minority positions. Philip Goof is by far the most well-known name at the moment defending panpsychism, right? Although he goes back and forth which version of panpsychism defends. Sometimes he defends the one extreme end, which is panpsychism, and then go to the extreme other end, which is cosmopsychism, where it goes back and forth a little bit. Now, because of this, there's also a different methodology to be established in science. They call post-materialist science, post-empirical science, and non-empirical confirmation theory, also known as theoretical confirmation theory. We already use this to an extent with simulation, testing with computer simulation to do these types of things, or analogous information, right? Without the before, but it's never been much of a acceptance. But again, with the rise since 2006, with the rise of non-naturalist and now realist approach to science, and now with Bell's theory, most wherever confirming the world is quantum in nature, and they may have some legitimacy. Again, this is a series of videos of what if naturalism and realism are false in general, despite the fact that I am myself a naturalist and a realist. To be more specific, I subscribe to non-local realism because of the current evidence of quantum mechanics, and also I am a reductive physicalist. And when it comes to consciousness, I am computationalist functionalist, and a little bit of influence of the type identity theory. But like I said, this is a position of what if these positions are wrong, judging by the new evidence of Bell's theory. And these are the case, these are the consequences. There are already multiple videos of the subject matter. And this may be the last video, so it's gonna be a long one. So it's like we're going all out with this. And to understand, we have to go to the sources of academic peer-reviewed literature, right? And to understand that, we have to understand very deeply what is. The first academic peer-reviewed book making a defense or case for the, how do I say this, post-materialist science was the Oxford Handbook of Psychology and Spirituality, which in 2024 they're going to release their second edition. If people are not familiar with that, and they already released their first edition back in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So, like I said, it's like shortly after the impact of the scholarship to field, right? And like I said, and then there's been a resurgence of these positions. And we're going to each one: post-materialist science, post-empirical science, and non-empirical confirmation theory. That leads to the more math side of the topic instead of purely of explaining what it is and what it's not, right? It's like we do this, but we do not do that. It's a little more complicated to explain. Confirmation being because it's based on Bayesian probability. And if people are not familiar with Bayesian probability, well, good luck with that. I'm sorry, right? So first we got to explain what is post-materialist science by the Oxford Handbook of Psychology and Spirituality. Okay, so let's start with the material in question. And according to Lisa J. Miller, right, in her introduction, the study of psychology has been changed over time, and because of this, we had to understand the consequences of these material phenomena. And to be more specific, we have to understand that we are going to change this possibly paradigm shift we are witnessing. The research outlined in this volume picks up a lot of thread of social scientists, one extending from the ideal to Socrates dialogue suspended in psychology in the 20th century to the exclusive vogue of secular materialism, except of course the unbridled and honest inquiry into spiritual psychology of William James. This formulation, the psyche in which the human mind is part and perceives a living spiritual reality, expands psychology by the Copernican magnitude. It demands that we move beyond the exclusive mechanistic and materialistic view. The human mind is as deterministic and authorized as the maker of meaning upon the inert world. To that of the human mind is dialectical. The dialectical human mind is dialogue with conscious sacred world and emanates from the same sources as the world around us. In this handbook, we define an emerging field within the spiritual psychology framework that post-materialism, a science beyond the limitation of exclusive ontological materialism and mechanism. For some of the scholars herein, the radical shift is quite explicit. For others, it's implicit for the ground on which they work, and yet others are silent on issues of psychology. In all cases, the science in this handbook forms a package of different views of human psyche in surrounding world than found in the 20th century psychology. Post-materialist spiritual psychology includes the view that consciousness is a fundamental strata of all surrounding reality, which our human mind is part and parcel. Consciousness is a fabric of reality, allows for a universe which guided intention that is inherently theological and which all grounds is sacred. Post-materialist and spiritual psychology can live alongside the cross-fertilized work conducted from a materialist perspective. The two are not exclusive and both are true. Materialist science merely needs to make its assumption clear as it sustains a vital place a breastwork conducted from ontological context. Materialists, however, in light of the past two decades of science, can no longer sufficient as the exclusive rubric through which we view the human psyche. From a post-materialist perspective, conscious universe refines something as matter. Consciousness contributes towards the unfolding material event. For instance, William Bankston in the chapter 35 experimentally showed the effects of consciousness in the context of a rigorous controlled trial of the healing of cancerous tumors in mice. The consciousness of the lab technician and the perturbation of boldness of consciousness between mice and the treatment condition and control condition yield in the control of mice respond to the treatment they did not directly receive. Findings of the blind so-called placebo effect in mice suggest that materialist experimental design might benefit from regards for post-material scientific consideration. Says in this handbook, view the brain in a multiple new ways, including as an antenna, as a materialization or material representation of energy or consciousness, and as an expression of superposition of consciousness. Direct experience is something to do as a way of knowing from greater consciousness. The human brain is not exclusively a thought-making machine, but rather an innate channel for dialogue with consciousness surrounding reality. In other words, the brain is now more real than feel simple because it is tangible and is no longer endured as the real source of consciousness. This view of the human mind allows for the wisdom and information that surrounds us to touch our lives, inform our decision, heals us, guide our collective human activities. We are free from an anthropogenic prison ontological centrality. From this perspective, we can ask as putting the human brain in the center of consciousness analogous to putting the earth as the center of the cosmos. This post-materialist ontology resonates as a founding truth for rising generation of university students. This paradigm speaks to the life reality of the current-day students. On November 19, 2010, some of the contributors for this fund will travel to Columbia University to share with graduate students the ideas presented in this volume. This eminent researcher shared the new expanded psychology science emphasize the gains brought through post-material understanding of spirituality, just as the oneness of consciousness, the existence of sacredness of source, and the theological development they inherit carries purpose. As intellectual forerunners whose academic rigor is matched by their innovation, these senior scholars have persevered points of their career beyond material biases and professional obstacles. Every those encountered by fellow revolutionaries in thought. It was therefore great delight and foremost surprise that these eminent scholars entering Columbia University Teachers College auditorium to discover hundreds of thousands of interest in their work. These intellectual heroes were welcomed with tremendous enthusiasm with our larger auditorium filled with capacity understanding from only students leaning on the back wall, sitting on the benches of the listener's style stairwell. The ground floor represented the historical cultural intellectual transition away from 20th century strict materialism to 21st century view that greater consciousness or spirit exists through all reality. Research study presented at the conference and report in this handbook validate way of healing through our psyche to engage greater consciousness that exists through and around us. Squatcher and Dorsey, chapter 34, solidifies support the phenomenon of spiritual healing non-locally and non-mechanistically for assembling elegant scientific studies on spiritual healers such as the landmark study of Gina Atterberg and colleagues in 2005. In Atterberg put patients and practice indigenous healers and magnetic resonant imaging or MRI machines. At the Pacific in regular time intervals and experimentals at the healer to work, as the healer started to use customary methods of intention, prayer, or invoking the spiritual presence, the MRI showed distinct change in the brain function of the healer, separate by distance and any sensory connection. The patient is at very same moments there to show the same dangers in the brain functions detected by an MRI. This elegant experimental design showed that consciousness heals through non-local means, and when an ultimate source of life or healing was invoked, this remarkable notion that is not entirely surprising, or really surprising at all. The many within the new generation of students, the 21st century student generation, consider this study confirmation on their sense of direct experience of the healing. As one student listener explained, and I quote, everyone has their own healing story, and this science confirming that it's true for everyone, that this is reality. End quote. Students under 20s or 30s respond to the contribution of their handbook with very staying. This education was one the old scientific model feels dead to us. This idea makes sense to us. I need to know this way of working. I have become a healer. Several students echo, I already assume a spiritual reality. Most of us do. So now what? We want to learn from this perspective. And the Oxford Handbook demand the students by integrating and expanding psychology into spirituality has taken a theological view. The author implied the post-materialist to topics such as mental health and wellness, how to heal and develop. The journey of students, many of them who meditate and speak overly and casually as synchronicity and karma, post-materialist is natural understanding from what they search, but often cannot find. Scholarship in the field and healing science. These students I had to Colombia about a decade before leaving. And we understand thinking, curious, and hockey seekers. The rigid traditional boundaries of academic department may be a relic of strict materialism, or they will study humans. The study animals and their atoms or machine. This handbook starts with the consciousness, the root to the human experience, the psychology as a human relationship to consciousness. The handbook constitutes a living think tank, diligently prepared for the past decade for rigorous research by leading academic research and healers, and deliberately crossing boundaries of so-called subfields into the existence movement of intellectual history. And we understand the contextual history is radical climate change, multiple wars, epidemic diseases, and volatile economics across the world. Right now, the danger is imminent, and we must learn to live in dialogue with the greater consciousness that is with us. And it's this dialogue form awakening dialogue sacredness and living spiritual awareness and psychotherapy in the American Psychology Association 2004, and generalized model for living with the way Jonas and colleagues in 2023 call out three pressing areas of need: recognition of the global village, awareness of the environment, and deep understanding of the health. The innovation of science the past 10 years pushes us right on time past of the 20th century models of mind every new opportunity. We live in a post-materialist era, to which at the moment perhaps we are being pushed, even led, by wisdom our young students to build upon the cutting edge of post-materialist spirituality psychology. That's one example that we're seeing. Another example we see is a great article written by Geoff Ward in his Medium post at the Post-Material Science, A Common Reality. And sadly, this is a member-only story, but I got lucky enough to have access to the document despite I'm not a member, so I know how that works. It starts with a quote by Mario Pugo. Scientific materialism explores several distorted and impoverished concepts of ourselves and our place in nature. End quote. The history of science has been marked by special moments leading to paradigm shifts. The transition from flat Earth to spherical, from geocentrism to heliocentrism, to Darwinism and to Darwinism and the recognition of time. It seems that we are now approaching another crucial paradigm shift. The transition from material science to post-material science, says the neuroscientist Mario Baruga in Expanded Reality, the emergence of post-material science. This is an excellent guide for anyone interested in the future of science and what must be changed in the new paradigm. Indeed, what will be the most profound Copernican revolution with the greatest import yet for human evolution. This book will mean increasing inspiration to a wider agreement that reality is much more than present to us by the physical world. It seems to me that an expanded reality means an expanded consciousness. They surely go hand in hand, and perhaps at the same time. The optimism of the title the Barbara has chosen for this book suggests simultaneously that reality will be expanded, and probably is already expanded, under the influence of the new science. Being prominent scientific spokesperson for the postmaterialist movement, Bokobo is the ideal author to go for the necessary insight and the reason for a moment being gathered by his thoughts and practice. He is the co-author of the Manifesto of the Postmaterialist Science, which have been signed by several hundred students, and a founder of the Academy for the Advancement of Postmaterial Science. I actually went to the website. It hasn't been updated since they published the manifesto, and the only update is like when they publish a new book. That's about it. It must be admitted that scientific method based on materialist philosophy has proven highly successful, having led to better understanding of nature as well as greater control and freedom from through technological advancements. But the almost absolute dominance of materialism in the academic world has stiffed science and hindered the development of scientific study of the mind. Consciousness and spirituality, says Portugal, if they, however, significant sectors of society, political, economics, education, health, and the media remain under the influence of the outdated, mechanistic, and reductionist worldview, which it needs to be abandoned. Pokemon hopes that his books, even if reliable and informative, will liberate people from the materialist straitjacket, with a better understanding of reality. He said that the implication of the incoming scientific outlook are tremendous for the everyday life at the individual level and for the future evolution of the human psyche. For a new theoretical framework, change the entire division that we view ourselves, give us back to the dignity and powers human beings via the development of various aspects of our potential. As researchers, we have been influenced by primarily significant first-hand spiritual experience, beginning with the epiphany at the age of 8, at which we knew we would become a scientist and help demonstrate that human ancestry is not determined by the brain. However, not considering himself a guru or wishing to raise marginalization, he does not focus on spiritual experiences, mentioning them only briefly in the desire to reveal something of himself and his background. In ever-increasing number of anomalies, materialist theory failed miserably to explain how the brain should produce mental functioning and consciousness. He insists science engaged in research today into consciousness and mind-brain relationship are faced with the ever-increasing number of anomalies that cannot be elucidated within the framework of materialist theories. These are the key elements of post-materialism, with the mindset being reducible to physical processes, that its ontological status is important to the matter, energy, and space-time. Mind does not come from matter, it cannot be reduced to something more fundamental. Another major factor is that deep interconnection exists between the mental world, psyche, and the physical world, physics. Usually, we have the impression that they are separate. By psi phenomena reveal their intimate link. Is an instability that engage the mind to influence physical and biological system to affect the state of the physical world. Believing firmly in this close relationship originating from the common principle, Birka sees the two realms as contemplative aspects magnificent on the individual whole that we can refer to as reality. Crucially, as one of the most important passages of the book, the first principle is transcendental consciousness that is also immanent, that is ambiguous in nature, transcending energy, matter, space-time, the world of the psyche. This consciousness guides the unfolding of the physical and non-physical worlds. The capital C surely implies a universal creative consciousness which participates in both its individual and collectively, and in no way a physical consciousness originates subjected by the brain. In this context, a highly profiled philosopher and scientist, Renato Kostrov, who had been well known for his stance of non-dualist monist idealism and the belief that consciousness is fundamental, primary, and causal, is thanked by the Burgard and his acknowledgement of having recognized the value of expanded reality. Surprisingly, perhaps Burgard neither detailed his relationship with Castro, who is also published in If Books, nor referred to him in the main body of his works. Empirical carefully analyzed the empirical evidence of mental ability to first brain activity, genes, and psychosomatic network. How positive emotional stance can fend off illnesses, extend the life expectancy, and foresee phenomena such as telepathy, distance vision, precognition, mental influence of the physical system and living system. And with the recent study of what happened to consciousness, especially after bodily death, has been increase in study where if the evidence are true, not only the afterlife exists, but personal survival, where both your consciousness and personal identity survives death. And the best evidence so far that even the Keith Augustine, who is a critic of the afterlife, who is a pure mortalist, who believes the afterlife, who believes the afterlife is impossible regardless of ecology and metaphysics, agree that mental mediumships are the best evidence for personal survival. And he records these things. And he also got the revelation near-death experience, shared death experience, death visions, of the body experience, mystical experience, also known as transcendent experience. Such phenomena provide vital evidence that mind, conscious, and spirit cannot be reduced simply to electrical and chemical activity in the brain. It is important that all these areas of mind, Boudica present validated by groundbreaking research carried out by open mind and visionary science, thus make his book all more valuable for the many. It brings the attention to the general reader a accessible manner, including more than 240 references. In his mind ability to act as a force, he said that a few years ago he possessed the mind's ability to act as a force, whether somatic or asomatic, non-local. Very small individuals to be able to exert greater force, the mind must be focused like a laser beam, rather than a diffuse light. Hence, some meditation techniques aim to develop intentional sustained concentration with respect to a specific object, such as training production and greater mental strength. It's worth pointing out that almost 40 years ago, such an approach was recommended by the English philosopher Colin Wilson, whose life work find a way to transform people's lives through the interconnected or transcendental experience involving expanded consciousness and area realization of actual human potential. Bogle reminds that the quantum science shows that basic conceptual structure of mind must be rethought because the discovery the observers and the observed, the physics and the method used for observation, for example, are related. He writes that it's appealing that even though quantum mechanics invalidate the metaphysical postulation of materialism, some scientific philosophers, by their ignorance or bad faith, still cling to the superstition. Some of them, the fundamentalists, behave like true religious fanatics to defend the erroneous, obsolete system of belief. The quote-unquote pseudo-skeptics, who present themselves as defender of critical thought, logic, or reason, who actually have closed minds and are interested in facts and truth, or they examine evidence and conduct experiments denying everything incompatible with their doctrine, and ultimately seeks mental control of the population he wants. As Mario Brugada is currently affiliated with the Department of Psychology at the University of Arizona, he has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a doctorate in neuroscience. He underwent postdoctoral research at the University of Texas Medical School and the Montreal Neurological Institution. And to understand this, Porter Wilson became, because he too was an African analyst of research into science phenomena paranormal, and believed that by concentrating on purely physical questions, science, great humans have brought them closer to self-destruction. Argued the ordinary human consciousness was incomplete. They obscured the truth of reality when tarnished by materialism and have much in common with today's post-materialist position. I refer to him sometimes in my review of the new books about mind and consciousness because his works, most of which were written decades before the term post-material science became familiar. Again, to understand this, we have to keep going further. Like for example, another example is like the great article by Mario Burgoyne in the emerging of post-materialist paradigm toward the next great scientific revolution. And to understand that, Mario Burgoyne is a neuroscientist, right, that I mentioned earlier, and he was a leading figure in this development. In the introduction, they understand what is the failure of materialism, but we're basically talking about naturalism in a very general sense, because there are many different schools of thought within naturalism. Few scientists are aware that we call modern scientific world use predict on the number of metaphysical assumptions, hypotheses about the nature of reality that was first proposed by the pre-Socratic philosophers. These assumptions, which several centuries later are associated with classical physics, include materialism, the notion that matter is all that truly exists. Este, and reductionism, the idea that complex things can be understood by reducing into interactions of the part to a simpler, more fundamental things, such as tiny material particles. Other assumptions include determinism, the notion that future states of physical biology can be predicted from current state and mechanism, and the idea that the world works like a machine. During the 19th century, these associates ordered turned into dogma and coalesced into the belief system that came to know as scientific materialism. This belief system implied that mind and consciousness are all that we such as experience are identical with or can be reduced to the electrical or chemical processes of the brain, and these brain processes are ultimately reducible to the interaction between basic physical elements. Another implication of this belief is that there are thus any intention cannot any effect upon our brains and bodies, our actual physical world, since the mind cannot directly affect the distant physical and biological system in the world other world. We human beings are nothing but complex biophysical machines. Every sort of consciousness, personal, automatically vanish when we die. The ideology of scientific materialism had been dominating activity during the 20th century, so dominant that the majority of scientists started to believe that it represents the only rational view of the world. This domination has seriously constrained the science, hampered the development of studying mind, consciousness, and spirituality. Furthermore, faith in this belief system is exclusive planetary framework of reality for many scientists to neglect certain aspects of subjective dimension of human experiences. This has led to several distorted and impoverished understanding of ourselves and our place in nature. Over a century ago, physicists discovered phenomena that at atomic level we could not account for by classical physics. This led to the development of quantum mechanics. This new physics convincingly refuted the metaphysical assumption underlying scientific materialism. For example, quantum mechanics is going to question the material foundation of the world by showing that atoms and subatomic particles are not really objects. They do not exist with certainty at defined spatial locations and defined times. Well, they show the tendency to exist for real-world potentiality with the quantum domain, which was analyzed by Heisenberg in 1976. However, physicists had discovered that particles being observed and the observer, the physics and the method used for observation are somehow linked, and the result of the observation seem to influence the physicist's conscious intent. This phenomenon led to figures such as Max Planck, Arnold Schwarzenegger, John von Neumann, and Eugene Wigner to propose that consciousness of the physicist is vital to the existence of physical events be observed and the mental events such as intention can affect the physical world. This interpretation is supposedly well known within living science physicists like Henry Strapp, Andrew Newton, and Paul Davies. Although quantum mechanics has invalidated metaphysics such associated with 19th century materialism, several contemporary scientists and philosophers still hold the belief system and therefore adopt very narrow what the humans are and can be. They firmly believe that science is aligned with methodological and physical materialism. Further, convincing view that the mind and consciousness are sleeping products of brain activity as an introverted fact that has been demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt. Undoubtedly, scientific methods based on materialist philosophy have been slightly successful, not only increase our understanding of nature but also create numerous benefits of the world, such as creating control and freedom through advances in technology. Nevertheless, science is first and foremost a non-dogmatic, open-minded method of acquiring knowledge about nature through observation, experimental investigation, therefore explanation of phenomena. Science is not synonymous with materialism. It should not commit to any particular belief, dogmas, or ideologies. Furthermore, materialist theory had utterly failed to explain the brain how to generate the mind consciousness. These theory cannot solve the whole problem of consciousness. The problem is explaining how why we have phenomenal experiences or qualia. In addition, these theories are unable to account for the plethora of empirical findings that are considered to be anomalous with regard to materialist framework. In the 1960s, historian and philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn published The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which became very influential in both academia and popular circles. He proposed the paradigm that demonstrates science generally unable to enlarge phenomena not allowed by paradigm they are committed to. According to Kuhn, when anomaly, experimental observation, or other critical evidence which violate the widely accepted theoretical framework, that the paradigm cannot accumulate, and persistent effort by scientists fail to elucidate these anomalies. A scientific community begins to lose confidence in the dominant paradigms and crisis period truth. A new paradigm competing with the old for supremacy can now be entertained. This new paradigm is just an extension of the old paradigm, but a completely different worldview. This typical champion by both scientists storming the faction of set this dogma, and surprisingly, as conservative scientists who believe the Ammonite will be resolved soon from within the old paradigm, they fight to salvage this theoretical framework, but if the new paradigm shows sufficient promises, it is better able to account for Ammonite's observation, and that attracts scientific group of scientists away from the old paradigm and the paradigm shift or scientific revolution. Of course, following this paradigm shift, scientists return to solely possible but within the new paradigm. A good example of this capital plan is the Copernican revolution. And we see that like Darwinian at the evolution, and also like, of course, quantum mechanics in 1900 to 1930s. But present-day scientists working in the field of consciousness and research enter the mind-body part find the science similar situation to the physicists at the turn of the 20th century undeniable. They are confronted with the increased amount of anomalous evidence that cannot be elucidated by materialist theories of mind consciousness. And the famous quote by the on the analysis that some evidence guide by radical empiricists view that we should study any human experience no matter how unusual it may seem at first glance, and that study was established by William James. We understand how radical these ideas can be if given the chance, right? And if they understand the phenomenon of weather. Another good example is by what is the nature of postmaterialist paradigm, where it doesn't mean for a postmaterialist review. There are the classes and categories of theories. One, type 1 post-materialist theories. Neo-physical theory that are derived from materialist theory, where the materialist theory are still seen as primary view as being fundamentally necessary to create non-material yet physical phenomena such as consciousness. Type 2 post-materialist theory. Post-materialist theory of consciousness exists alongside materialist theory, where each class of theory is primary or view as not being derived from, i.e. not reducible to, and the other. And three, the type 1 post-materialist theory, where materialist theory are derived from and are a subset of more inclusive post-materialist theories of consciousness. Here, post-materialist theory are seen as primary view as the ultimate origin of material system. Type 1 theories are the least controversial. Type 3 are the most controversial. And we'll focus on the second snippet because sadly, read the paper. The true seminal meanings of post-materialist science. These theoretical questions address and of course true seminal think tanks mean the emergence of evolution of post-materialist science. The first meeting was conceived and organized by Lisa Miller and was held at Columbia University in 1999 and considered approximately 1,000 senior scientists spanning physics, engineering to psychology and medicine who participate in the Oxford Handbook of Psychology and Spirituality. In type 1 post-materialist theories are one of the materialist theory are primary true phenomena such as consciousness, including non-conscious consciousness that may be non-material, and nonetheless still physical and obey physical laws. I sometimes think that these neo-physicalism in the sense these three possess that energy and information are in a sense physical, even if they are not, what is very questionable. In type 2 theory, we assume that phenomenal nature of the cosmos cannot be explained by materials phenomena and therefore require innovation. Non-materialist theories to understand them. However, they view the phenomena as being separate from matter in their essence and consider equally fully with matter and what experience is material reality. A prime example of this analysis of type 2 post-materialist theory is David Chalmers. And type 3, the most controversial, is the express predictive phenomena such as consciousness are not only one separate conception of a material system, type 2 theories, and two not created by material system, type 1 theory, and there are also three precursors to creation matter itself, and which are primordial to matter itself. The puzzle purpose is that makes semantically post-material science may sound negative in the emphasis at the end of an era, thinking that it does not explicitly for prescription what we knew theory or theories will be. This negative position is in turn intentional, leaving the future completely open. Observation, the naming of this perspective will emerge. And again, in the study of these phenomena, I guess even for the lack of a better word, like weirder. That's the best I can say. Because a good example, a paper by published in 2021 by Victor Cristianto and Florenti Samaranteche on post-imperialism doctrine and natural fuzzy way of doing science from principle of summary to free examples in physics. Despite a majority of theoretical physicists begin to accept the post-imperialist doctrine, still few physicists and mathematics alike don't agree with such a doctrine, partly because it is against Popper's criteria of falsifiability for any free physicists and other scientists, and partly because criteria like beauty or elegance is rather subjective for a theory to be accepted as physics. Physicists like Peter Wolf and Sabine Hosefeld have wrote books on this topic. In this article, we don't repeat those arguments. We are arguing in favor of principle of parsimony, what that nature seems to be prefer least action, right? Or least energy, either modeling complexity, assumptions and free parameter involved, and minimizing calculation and computational entropy needed. Therefore, we arrive with that one shall find balance among some criteria. We call this point outcome optimality. Introduction. The present status of theoretical physics is to face dark cloud in the sky because the highly acclaimed theories such as loop quantum gravity, superstring, or M theories cannot be verified by experiment, at least not with the present limit measurement devices. Therefore, some theories, like David, began to argue in favor of releasing viable criteria for any theory that is working physics theory. That kind of post-empiricism doctrine, as I call it, is supposed to supersede the conventional Popperian epistemology, which includes falsifiability for any theory before it can be accepted. However, some prominent cosmology theoretical theoreticians disagree with this doctrine, attempt to extend speculative theories of the universe from experimental verification, undermine science. But despite some physicists that have decided to virtual empirical tests and conception of simplicity, such criteria appear to not be clear and apply on daily basis. There will need to be applied such a criteria simplicity on principle parsimony in more operational matter. In recent articles, it's been argued that Dirac's doctrine to find new physics, we should find new mathematics. And we should give it more emphasis. Any effort to depict a man of life where its abstract substance needs to be use real life or concrete experience to arise such understanding. To choose the concrete experience to connect with the abstract domain, one needs intuition. Therefore, to reply a question concerning the resulting problem over emphasizing rationality in mathematics and beyond, Ian McKickler's concept of central electric theory can shed light. From a neo-trusted logic point of view, this article recommends a combination. Empirical facts observation, analytical thinking, intuition slash insight, and the physical model. Both intuition and right hemisphere analytical logical thinking process of the human left brain would be more adequate in creating a holistic approach. This proposal term elucidly calls to access the balanced brain. And again, some criteria that had to be established are parsimonian and argument for the east action, and trying to make the theory slash hypothesis as minimal and simple as possible, no matter how complex it actually is when you stand back and look at it, right? Este, but regardless, these are examples. Well, a good example would be like the theory of models of electrons, would be suggested for instances like Chocolat, who seek more related electron model, which is able to describe experimental contact in our attempt to explain such experiment. Electron creation plasma allows to come up with new model electron based off Helmholtz electron vortex theory. In turn, we'll discover a particle model electron capture event inside Earth. Right? There's also the the Puglia influence predicted at the ultimate beauty product of everything, being the smallest unit of matter, the same time the smallest unit of consciousness. The water vortex model is adjusted for the pressure as a tertiary magnetic concentration kind of flows of particles, whereas the insertion of Krasnopolevets or aggressive particles just as Butamats, which is a name after a radio text. But don't take that statement too seriously, it's just a fancy word. And it's like it's a good indication of why we use descriptions of theoretical physics and experimental physics, because again the minimest simplest theories are most likely to be the best, most likely to be correct than anything else, even if it turns out not wrong under pragmatic grounds, if then we have to use it in order to make a successful science. Despite the majority of theoretical physicists begin to accept post-empiricism struggle, still physicists and mathematicians like don't agree with such doctrine because it against Popper's criteria of falsifiability. We discussed several more potential criteria applied to preserve parsimony in the day-to-day model building process. We also discussed outcome optimality as also a number of examples, like I said, neutrinos, parametric particles, and other similar phenomena within the more fundamental stuff like quantum field theory may give us a better chance to adopt a post-empiricist and post non-empirical confirmation theory approaches to sciences. And Post-Empiricism and the Philosophy of Science by Michael Marston. as a good example. In his paper, he provides some sketchy remarks on the post-empirical phenomenon of philosophy of science, taking into account the themes of the relationship between language on the one side and reality on the other, and parallel problem of the alleged elimination of metaphysics. Unlike the logical empiricists, Popper believed the clear separation of analytical synthetic distinction and between theory observation is an impossible task. According to this view, theory observation are intimately linked to each other and no pure observations are possible. A position very similar to Popper was endorsed by the American pragmatists Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. There's also important similarity between Popper's say and William James' thesis. It is clear that we recognize that theoretical dimension precedes observation, and we claim furthermore that scientific theories had a created character and we may explain jumps that often takes place in the history of science. Later, Paul Furthermore and his followers entered philosophy of science into something mysterious and not easily classified in philosophical scientific terms that anything goes undermines the meaning itself of the discipline. If science is equated to any other dimension of spirit, art, religion, or even witchcraft, the specific economic character scientific rationality is limited. It follows that philosophy of science lose any meaning role with the field of human knowledge, while even philosophy as such becomes more similar to a joke than a serious endeavor. It is well known that in the last few decades, logical positivist supremacy within philosophy of science has been replaced by the so-called post-empiricist thought. My intention is not to outline historical account of this important change or outlook because it's been done already by others. What I want to do is to provide some short sketchy remarks on the post-empiricist phenomenon, taking into account that these themes of the relationship between language on the side of reality on the other and parallel problem with alleged domination of metaphysics. Unlike the logical empiricists, Popper believed the clear separation of analytical significant distinction, a position very similar to Johnson the Spear, who argued that 2 centuries before him, but it wasn't until 1960 where we finally adopted this thing. Henry Putnam, a neo-pragmatist philosopher, however, does not mention the striking similarity between Popper and William James, although he cannot infer from this fact of the fundamental falsification was somehow influenced by American pragmatist tradition. Anyhow, it is clear that we recognize the theoretical dimension, precede observation, and clear form of scientific theory had created character, and these explain these jumps. And rather than having recourse to classical logical positivist model, Einstein himself, in fact, used to say there's no logical safe path to able to make us automatically to discover the universal laws of physics, since only a mixture into which experiments may be scientific to provide direction. In criticizing logical empiricism, Popper says something more important about relationship between language and the world. The true, according to the author, is cosmology. What will meaning of his work change by using the term metaphysics? I do not believe so, even though, as I said previously, that term may be abandoned. If so, some reasons need to be bothersome. Is any event obvious that mere chance of word does not modify the substance of thing? Popper thinks that prohibition of any type of a non-scientific power is simply ridiculous. Because in the end of the day, everything is inherently philosophical and political. If the main talk is about scientific and non-scientific, and far from eliminating one of the two, it's still important not to confuse them. It's found that according to the Australian-born philosopher, metaphysics is part of meaningful discourse, even though metaphysical theories are different from scientific ones. But there's also a contingency between science and metaphysics, where we have to find the history of the metaphysical theory, which later on becomes scientific. The real problem at stake is does valid criteria demarcation, since and metaphysics ideas are often able to intense scientific activity. Metaphysics turn out to have precious heuristic value, and any attempt at elimination is bound for failure. Using Ian Hackett's words, the Popper had used this close to logical empiricism, where he claimed that metaphysics' role is after all auxiliary because only within science that man can get true knowledge of reality. Drawing our attention to methodological anarchism endorsed by Paul Federer, and leaving aside for reasons space and reference so much important authors such as Thomas Kuhn, Imre Lakatos, and others. It may not today play a role in science within the vast domain of human knowledge that's been strongly suggested question. Feuerbach, for instance, claimed that man's landing on the moon has no objective value. This advanced the viewpoint only for the citizens of the Western industrialized nation, who was content to judge reality through the lens of scientific progress. In his opinion, Sharma of a primitive tribe has a kind of knowledge which by no means inferior to that of Western scientists. While myth and science are on the same level, they're just different world perspectives which are both valid and endorsable. Taking this path, the notion of scientific progress becomes meaningless. If someone believes that math is better than more useful than science, let him think that way. And if we underline practical results obtained by science, Furthermore, answer is that there is no reason to judge the goodness of a particular work perspective on a particular basis. At this point, no doubt, any kind of dialogue between rather difficult, and his thesis mirror ideas of cultural tendency are nowadays popular in public opinion. And Feuerbach's popularity thus understandable if we take this typical sign of our time. What then is the role of philosophy as science according to Feuerbach? What is the role of philosophy at large? Such role do not even exist, we might answer. Note that in reaction against typical scientific outlook, those biological empiricism, Feuerbach is at least partially right when we will agree that science as well does not give us the only type of knowledge we're pursuing, but it's necessary when claiming there are many kinds of knowledge available to human beings to deny the fact that science and not magic provide us with a fair knowledge of structure of the solar system. He will answer, who cares? Makes any rational discussion pointless, and even questions the classical definition of man as a creature who naturally aims at knowing the reality which surrounds him. For this reason, we should not be surprised when reading the statement or draw from another works that he did over time. Nobody can thus deny further endorse irrationalism, a charge that our author after never rejected. But in my opinion, philosopher science is not entitled to assume such stance, because science is by definition a rational activity. Such we may conclude that Foucault is no longer philosopher science, but something else, maybe a poet, a propagandist of magic, esotericism. This, according to my view, one of the main reasons why contemporary scientists no longer take philosophy as science seriously. Some philosophers answer that for your position far from being rationalist, are instead justified because they take into account a different kind of rationality. To which I reply, all right, but which one? His rationality may be valid in textbook fantasy story that are certainly amusing and well written, but do not reflect reality at all. We do not need to accept for promoting to order to create scientific outlooks of reality endorsed by logical participants or with the absolutists put forth by analytical conceptual language. A rediscovery of the American pragmatist is more than sufficient for that purpose. We may thus find pragmatists and logical empiricists share many common positions. Both are interested in science and methodology, both have faith in human reason and its capacity, both believe the philosopher may try to demonstrate rigorous manner and correct their statements give us right to intersubjective type of discourse. If the logical empiricists, however, endorse scientism and pragmatism do not. According to pragmatists, scientific knowledge is just one of the many available kinds of knowledge. If the well, logical possibility, if the no meaningful task is possible outside scientific field, every type of knowledge must be reduced to scientific one. So we have monism and reductionism on the one side, and pluralism and anti-reductionism on the other side. Dewey, however, realized that while in advance that it was philosophical utopia, we now well understand pragmatist rejection of the excess of logical formalism. That rejection seems outdated for a long period of time, while today it looks more and more justified. And what about the relationship between science and ethics? While Dewey deemed them essential, logical empiricists and analytical philosophers usually pay little attention to the topic. So, a more rational way of rejecting scientism and endorsement of astrology and magic, yet many people claim that Froebel's position are necessary and valuable reaction to logical empiricism, scientific dogma. In philosophy as anywhere else, they say, access always promotes a position one, while somewhat reduce retardation as such as scientific rationality. It is not surprising to find authors who claim that landing on the moon has no objective value. Let me conclude that his thesis once again attacked in this individual state scientific rationality from the inside. AI subpath is the people close for choosing radical attack on science once sit down broader hostility of Western civilization have bad devil with Western intellectuals like Estelle Oswald Spengler. Montessori is obvious talking about this hostility. Great art literature has spawned from many of the world's civilization. But ever since Galileo, scientific research has been overwhelmingly dominated by the West. This hostility seems to me tragically misdirected. Even the most frightening Western application science, such as nuclear weapon, represents just one of the example of mankind's timeless effort to destroy itself with whatever weapon it can devise. Although I personally see that more of a problem with capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, and hierarchical centralized structures and nation states. So yeah, and also again read another article by in Nature by George Ellis, The Scientific Method to Defend the Integrity of Physics, to attempt to expand speculative theories of the universe from experimental verification undermines science. He argues George at the George Ellis and at the and well, I forgot his name, Goshosh, George. So I can't pronounce that regardless. This year, debate of physics look over where it turned. Faced with difficulty in applying fundamental theories of the useful world universe, some researchers called for a changing in how theoretical physics is done. Began to argue implicitly that a theory is sufficiently elegant and experimental is need not be tested experimentally, and breaking with centuries philosophical tradition, defining science knowledge empirical. We disagree, as the philosopher science called Popper, a theory must be falsifiable to be scientific. The chief among these allegations sufficient evidence are some string theories, because string theory is supposedly the only game in town, even though there's like M theory, quantum gravity, other forms of multiverse theory that do not rely on string theory, but just saying. As these improbable hypotheses are quite different from others related to directly real world and testable through observation. As we see theoretical physics risk becoming a no man's land between mathematics, physics, and philosophy does not truly meet the requirement of any scientific theory. Este, most theories like Postempirical wrote, in this journal, the theory of recursion is no longer scientific because it's so flexible they can accommodate any observable results. For example, cosmologists seem covered when it comes to those curses with physical cases the weaken the accessibility requirement for fundamental physics. We applaud the fact that David, and Carlo and others have brought the problem out in the open, but the trash is that to everything needs careful debate. As being questioned, some politicians and religious fundamentalists, potential damage that can happen. Some people will point string theory as a good example of a bad theory in general. David argued that veracity of string theory can be established through philosophical probabilistic argument about visual processes, citing Bayesian analysis and statistical method and inferring the likelihood the explanation fits set of facts. He equates confirmation with increased probability that theory is true or viable. But that increased probability can be purely theoretical because no one has found a good alternative, and theories with alternatives tend to be viable in the past. His research theory should be taken to be valid. And the many worlds interpretation, like as I go at the most popular defender at the moment I'm making this video, is Sim Coral. Were dismissed Popper's falsifiability criteria as a blunt instrument. He offered two other requirements. Certification should be definitive and empirical. By definitive, call means they say something clear and ambiguous about reality functions. By empirical, he agrees with the customary definition that it should be judged a success or failure of his ability to establish the data. He argued that inaccessible domains can dramatically affect in our cosmic backyard, despite why the cosmological quantity is so small in parts we see. But then in the multiverse theory, they expect to get no matter what astronomers observe, at least one, seeing Carl's definition of the many worlds interpretation, right? Which can be like, many worlds alternatives all the way down, like turtles all the way down. And even though some people hold said post-material science is an oxymoron, and I will not take her statement too seriously because she believes in superdeterminism. She just quantum mechanics, and she is a contemporary example of someone who subscribed to reductive physicalism, logical positivism, and basic limiting principle all at the same time. Which again, no serious philosopher will hold all these positions at the same time. And like I said, especially logical positivism. You may hold to an extent that basic limiting principle and reductive physicalism, but again, you cannot hold all three positions at the same time. So I have my personal problem with something that Husserl, right? And again, in meta-empirical confirmation, 23 points of criticism. Uh, Richard Darwin, again, he argued in multiple cases far back in 2015 and as recent in 2020 that three arguments on non-empirical confirmation theory were capable of significantly increased trust in scientific theories, credibility in the absence of empirical confirmation. And this discussion here brought 3 points of criticism, which is presented by Crystal Cole, Lee Somi, and Oroti, which were directed. Zooming out, the concept of non-empirical assessment denotes lines of research that aim to generate a significant degree of trust in theories' viability in the absence of empirical confirmation. The first criticism is arguments of non-empirical confirmation are structurally flawed or true, and meta-empirical confirmation is too easy to achieve that you can justify basically anything. Like, for example, as Lisa Moon aims to demonstrate that quantum loop gravity can be confirmed meta-empirically just as well as string theory. Or three, no authorities argument scientific thinking narrower. But all three criticisms address the note raised a relatively important issue, answer them based on appointed significance of meta-empirical confirmation was a number of conceptual non-trivial elements. All three arguments rely on the careful distinction between local and global claims and the specific status of meta-level observation. Right? And to understand, like we have to keep looking at the data more importantly than anything. For example, the modeling of non-empirical confirmation. People representation of the motivation concept of non-empirical theory confirmation regard to play an important role in the scientific process that not be equated knowledge so far. Formalizing with Bernaysian framework demonstrate that non-empirical confirmation does essential structure characterize. In the account, however, a closer look at the actual science shows the adequacy and canonical understanding of the theory of confirmation to doubt. It makes scientific field confirmation in canonical sense. This criteria is not about only based on assignment of theory status. Three underlying issues arise in the historical field, right? The other like philosophical and even empirical field. So, what is non-confirmation empirical? It's a percent from a classical hypothetical deductivism in the canonical view is presented. Most read it's a Bayesian confirmation. Constraint confirmation to observation with the Euphorius intent domain, only the agreement between Euphorius prediction and empirical data constitute confirmation to that of theory. We will call this form of confirmation empirical confirmation because it's based on empirical testing, the Euphorius prediction. Our question would be which kind of consideration beyond the limits of empirical confirmation may be principally understood as contribution to empirical confirmation. More specifically, we search for the form of non-empirical theory of confirmation that can be accounted for those considerations that have been argued above. At the same time, however, we retain the crucial observation to stay close to possible mechanism of empirical confirmation. Confirmation should remain true to the basic principle of scientific reasoning. In order to argue for the confirmation in observation, we choose elements of empirical reasoning at these two distinct levels. If a theory is predicting and currently reaching are in agreement with all possible data, theory should be called empirical. Now, empirical confirmation does amount to the increase of trust in the theory's empirical viability. Note that this unprecedented confirmation in certain aspects stay closer to empiricist understanding than concepts of empirical confirmation that are based on true probability. By avoiding the reference to truth, we block the possibility that theories which have no empirical implication can more empirically confirm. Thus, in theory to have no empirical implication is trivial for account cannot be increased by any means. Therefore, confirmation on non-predictive theories cannot occur. Again, if you want more about this material, I will link in the description to understand the resurgence or the rise of post-materialist science, post-empirical science, and non-empirical confirmation theory.